Our topic for today will be the audiolingual method of teaching English. In this lesson, you will learn the meaning and the characteristics of the audiolingual method and also the merits and the limitations of the method. Audiolingual method refers to the method used for foreign language teaching, where students are made to listen to the language first and then speak later in order to learn the target language. The main focus is on the listening and speaking skills. Spoken language is emphasized in this method. The mother tongue is not used inside the class as the focus is on the target language. This method is also known as the New Key or the Army method. This method originated back those days during the period of the Second World War. One of the major needs and challenges of the war was to find people who could decode languages and codes of the enemy. American servicemen were appointed all over the world. They felt difficulties in the communication with other countrymen. The government needed personnel who could understand and speak other languages and work as interpreters. To address this issue, the Army Specialized Training Program was set up, where soldiers who work in the decoding room learned other languages very fast through language drills and practice. Later, Professor Nelson Brooks of Yale University coined the word audiolingualism in 1964. He said that teaching of a foreign language needs oral abilities to communicate. The audiolingual method manifested the behavioral psychology or behaviorism. Behaviorism says language learning should become automatic habit formation through drills and pattern practice. For the students to practice or learn the target language, they need to go through a system of reinforcement. If the learners give a correct answer, they will get a positive reinforcement. But if they make a mistake, they will be given negative reinforcement. Eventually, they will learn the right answer or they will be motivated to answer correctly. Since the method emphasizes on the acquisition of structures and patterns in common everyday dialogue, regular and repeated practice and drill is provided to the students until their response given in the target language becomes automatic. The main objective of the audiolingual method is to help learners acquire accurate pronunciation. It demands sufficient knowledge of vocabulary to learn grammar patterns. No explicit grammatical instructions are given, but it is taught inductively. The learners develop the ability to respond quickly and accurately in speech situations. The difference between the behaviorist approach and the audiolingual approach or method is that while behaviorism focuses on words, audiolingualism focuses on structure. Let us see the characteristics of the audiolingual method. This method is based on the principle of habit formation, so repetition and drills are used to teach structural patterns. It also believes in the ear training process, which means that in the learning of a foreign language, ear training is important in developing speaking proficiency. It also helps in the articulation of sounds, memorization, and internalization of proper auditory sound images. This brings us to the next characteristic or principle, which is focus on listening and speaking skills. Teaching listening and speaking skills is emphasized more than teaching reading and writing skills. Reading and writing are introduced only after sufficient practice in listening and speaking are done. Set phrases are memorized with a focus on intonation and correct pronunciation. The learners are made to thoroughly repeat phrases and sentences and memorize basic rules of language learning. Repetition of dialogues and sentences help the learners in the easy and fast learning of language. As I've said earlier, there is no clear grammatical explanations made. Correct responses of learners are positively reinforced in order to help them learn the language faster and better. Use of language laboratory is helpful in this method. This method was strongly influenced by the belief that the fluent use of a language was essentially a set of habits that could be developed with a lot of practice. This practice involved students spending hours in the language lab, repeating oral drills. Language lab is used to give practice in listening and speaking, and the students pay attention to all the features of the spoken language carefully. What could be the merits of the audiolingual method? To begin with, we all know that a good listener becomes a good speaker. In other words, a person who can listen well becomes an effective and efficient speaker. The audiolingual method gives this opportunity to the learners because it gives due importance to listening and speaking. Reinforcements are used appropriately. Correct pronunciation and structure of the language are emphasized and acquired. This method is grounded on a solid theory of learning, that is the behaviorist theory. Like any other methods, this method also has some limitations. The first here, equal importance is not given to all the 4 skills. More stress is given on listening and speaking skills compared to reading and writing. And then meaning is neglected and only language form is considered. This method is teacher-centered. Learners have passive roles. They are mere imitators of the teacher. The teacher plans all the linguistic activities and the students are supposed to do only what and how the teacher wishes them to perform. This method is also very mechanical. It demands pattern practice, drilling, and memorization. Very less attention is given to deeper knowledge of linguistic rules. Today we have learned the audiolingual method. In the next video, we will learn all about the bilingual method.